Same meal, same calories, same portion, different order. 73% lower blood sugar spike. Not from a new diet, not from cutting anything, from changing the sequence of what you eat. Here's something that happened to me for years without knowing why. I would sit down at a restaurant. The bread would arrive before I even ordered. I was hungry. I ate it. By the time the main course came, I was somehow hungrier than when I sat down. And I had not even started my meal. There was not appetite. There was chemistry. After perimenopause and menopause, your insulin response changes. Your body handles glucose differently than it did at 35. The same meal that felt fine before now spikes your blood sugar higher and keeps it elevated longer. Not because you change what you eat, because your hormonal environment changed how your body reads it. So today, 3 insulin tricks that work with that new reality. Not against it. You're not changing what you eat. You are not changing how much you eat. You are changing 3 small things about how you eat it. And the difference, as the studies will show you, is not small at all. The older you eat your food changes your insulin response completely. Here's the mechanism. Think of your stomach as a sink. Your intestine is the pipe below. Food arrives in the sink, gets broken down, and passes to the pipe. When you eat carbohydrate first, glucose molecules travel from mouth to stomach to intestine completely uninterrupted. Nothing slowing them down. They flood the bloodstreams. Insulin spikes. The lock tightens. When you eat vegetable first, the fiber in those vegetables arrive at the bottom of your stomach and creates a mash, a physical barrier. Any glucose molecules arriving after cannot pass through quickly. They slow down. The spike flattens. Protein and fat go second because they also slow gastric emptying, the rate at which food moves from stomach to intestine, about 3 calories per minute normally. Fiber and protein slow that down even further. Now, the studies. 2015, published in Diabetes Care, same meal, same calories, different order. Vegetable first, then protein, then carbs. The glucose spike was reduced by 73%. Not 5, not 10, 73% from the exact same food. 2018, pre-diabetics, no medication, 38% lower glucose eating carbs last. One participant eating carbs first had symptoms of hypoglycemia, shaking, sweating from the same meal that caused no symptoms eaten in the right order. And it is not just glucose. The same research looked at ghrelin, the hormone that tells you you are hungry. Eating in the wrong order, ghrelin came back up after 2.5 hours. Eating in the right order, ghrelin stayed suppressed for 4 to 5 hours. Same meal, different order, almost double the satiety. Plot twist, next time you are at a restaurant and they bring bread to the table, before you even order, that is not hospitality. That is chemistry. Bread on an empty stomach spikes your glucose. 90 minutes later, it crashes. And 90 minutes later is exactly when the waiter arrives to ask if you want dessert. Conspiracy or not, I find it interesting. As for the bread with your meal, or after, or none, your insulin will thank you. Same food, different speed, different result. One experiment, the same sandwich eaten in 4 minutes versus eaten over 30 minutes. Blood sugar spike eating fast, 45 milligrams. Blood sugar spike eating slowly, 35 milligrams. A 22% reduction. Same sandwich, same person, different speed. And on top of that, your satiety signal takes 20 minutes to travel from your gut to your brain. If you finish your meal in 8 minutes, the signal never arrives in time. You keep eating. Glucose spikes higher. Insulin follows. The squatter gets fed. 20 minutes. Put the fork down between bites. chill, let the system do what it was designed to do. I want to tell you something about two cultures I have lived in. In France, where I live now, a meal is a ritual. You sit down, entree first, usually salad, vegetable, something light, then the main, protein at the center, then dessert, small and often replaced by a long conversation over coffee. A meal in France takes 1 or 2 hours. Nobody is rushing. Nobody is eating standing up. The French did not design this as a metabolic protocol, but accidentally, they got almost everything right. The order, the speed, the time between courses that lets the satiety signal actually arrive. Let's compare this when I was in South Korea. I spent years working in fast electronics in South Korea. Lunch was 10 minutes, everything mixed together in one bowl. Rice, stew, side dishes, all at once. No order, no sequence, no time. My body had no idea what had just happened. The satiety signal never arrived. I was hungry again by 3. I know this is not the traditional South Korean way, but this is what I lived at one point of my life. On the other hand, South Koreans do not traditionally eat dessert. The meal ends, maybe a coffee, that is it. Which means the glucose spike from the meal never gets a second wave. The culture accidentally built in a natural stopping point. The culture you live in shapes how you eat before you even make a conscious choice. This is worth noticing. After eating, a 10 to 15 minutes walk, a few squats, light movement. Here's why it works. Your muscle cells contain transporters called GLUT4, glucose transporter 4. Normally, insulin is the key that unlocks them and lets glucose in. But when your muscles contract, GLUT4 transporters activate without needing insulin at all. Your muscles absorb glucose directly. Blood sugar drops. Insulin never needed to spike as high. The lock stays open. The squatter starts packing. And the studies show the difference is significant. Sitting after a meal, blood sugar peaks high, stays elevated, comes down slowly. A 10 minutes walk after eating, the peak is lower, the curve flattens. A 10 minutes walk plus a few squats, lower even further. The large muscles of your legs are the most efficient glucose absorbers in your body. The more muscle mass you activate, the more glucose gets absorbed without insulin. This is not exercise, this is the free insulin management tool. And there's one more reason this matters specifically after menopause. Many women notice their blood sugar is highest first thing in the morning, even before eating anything. This is called the dawn phenomenon. Cortisol, growth hormone, adrenaline, code red signals all rise naturally in the early morning to prepare your body to wake up. They signal your liver to release glucose into the bloodstream. In an insulin-resistant body, the liver does not stop when it should. Blood sugar climbs before breakfast even begins. What you do the evening before affects this directly. A short walk after dinner, even 10 minutes, reduces the glucose your liver releases overnight. You wake up with a lower baseline. The whole day starts differently. One more thing worth saying about timing, the walk works best when you take it immediately after eating. Not 30 minutes later, not when you feel like it. As soon as you finish your meal, you get up and you move. Here's why timing matters. If you wait too long, your insulin has already peaked. The walk at that point will still help. It will shorten the time it takes for insulin to come back down to baseline, but it cannot undo the peak that already happened. If you move immediately before the peak forms, you intercept it. The muscles absorb the glucose before insulin needs to spike as high. The peak is lower. The recovery is faster. There are many theories about this. Walk 10 minutes after eating. Walk 30 minutes after eating. My answer is simpler. As soon as you are free, as soon as you have finished your meal, go. Just go. Do not wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is now. The goal of all 3 tricks is the same. Avoid reaching the peak in the first place. Every meal, every day, that consistency is what changes everything over time. Let me show you what happens when you combine all 3. The glucose spike is not just reduced by one trick. Each layer compounds the previous one. The fiber mash slows the glucose. The slow eating gives satiety signal time to arrive. The walk activates GLUT4 and absorbs what remains. You did not change the food, you changed the conversation, and your body finally understood what you were saying. Let's rewire that. 3 tricks. None of this require a new diet. None of this require new food. They require a different relationship with the meal you are already. If you want to watch a dedicated episode on the benefit of walking, watch this episode. If you want to know how I got rid of the menopausal belly fat, watch this episode. One wire fixed, more to rewire. Body rewired. This is not it. It's miswired, and we're fixing that together.